What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Clocks Running, the podcast for everything flag football and flag football officials. I'm your host, Zane, along with your other host, Ant.
Hey, what's
Uh,
up, man? I missed you this past week, man.
I know, bro. I was watching the podcast, and bro, I was so pissed. I was so upset about it, bro. I really wanted to be here.
And you stuck me with your brother.
I know. I'm sorry about that one too.
So what do you got, man?
For the topics for the day.
No. What are we doing? What do we got going? Sorry, I cut off your introduction. I
Oh,
threw you off,
yeah,
man.
okay.
Talk to
Throw
me.
me off a little bit. Throw me off a little bit. Nah, so today we are joined by the famous Lance Lou once again. So I'm gonna go ahead and add him to the stage for a second. Yes, sir.
Here we go. What
So,
up, Lance?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, so I just want to get right into it. So, this podcast is called The Clock's Running, but tonight, the first topic we are going to talk about all the times that the clock does stop and when it should be running and when it's not. I don't care if it's fours rec or if it's fives pro. I still get the same question. Does an incomplete stop the clock? In the first minute of the game. Oh no, false start. That's a loss of down. All of these things about the clock and the clock mechanics, and I just don't understand how with players that are in tournaments every single week and they're playing the same rules and there's so many similarities no matter what format it is, how players still ask the same questions. So Lance, we brought you on. We want to hear straight from you. If you can just clear some things up, talk about the stuff that frustrates you most. The floor is yours, Lance.
It frustrates me the most. Do we have enough time for all that?
Yeah.
So let's put it. Let's set the stage, right? in flag, the clock, as our podcast is called, the clock is always running, regardless, especially in the first half. The only reason why in the first half a clock should stop is if there's a challenge, an injury to a player, or a timeout, or ref's discretion, right?
mhm.
Those are the only four things that actually should stop a clock in the first half. In the second half, clock's going to roll up until we are at the 1 minute warning, where if it's one possession game where the score is 8 points or less, and this is going to be fun for you, Ant. If it's 8 points or less in men's or women's, or how much in co-ed? Ant?
Oh, I don't even want to get involved with that because the math is wrong.
Rules, it's 44. According to the rules, it's 44.
44 doesn't make any sense to me. That's all I'm saying.
44 is the. I'm sorry. 44 is the game is over.
First two rule.
Or yeah, it's the 13, right? So it's
There you go.
in co-ed, it's 13. In men's or women's formats, it's 8. That's basically one possession. Clock will stop at the 1 minute warning. So clock mechanics. The clock will stop in one of, I believe it's 6 situations: out of bounds, incompletes, change of possession, timeout, after a PAT, and ref discretion. Clock will start on the snap. When does the clock start on the ready? After a first down.
Whoa! Wait a minute. That's crazy because every time a team gets a first down, they immediately call a timeout before I can even stop the clock.
But that's so to your point, Ant, if they didn't read the rules, so I'm like, well, okay, you call timeout. What do you want me to do?
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's the same rule. Like, well, you call timeout and you don't have any. Okay, that's an unsportsmanlike.
Yeah.
And so what does the definition of the ready mean, right? We always see offenses running onto the field. They get set, everyone's lined up, and we're telling them as we're hustling down the field, especially on a change of possession, we're hustling down the field to, say, hey, wait for my whistle, and they go, and we're like, we'll blow it dead because we're not ready. right? Because we're not ready.
Mhm.
We need to get to our spots. Like because if we aren't in our spots and something happens, you're going to blame us because you guys were in this right spot. I'm like, well, you guys didn't let us get to that spot. So let us get to our spot, especially in a change of possession. The clock's not running if it's under a minute and one possession. The clock's not running. Yes,
Mhm.
defense has that opportunity to get set. Sorry, but we're not as fast as you guys.
Yeah.
We're not going to sprint down and then sprint all the way back. We will hustle. We will make the effort to get down to the field, but we're also checking mechanics, making sure everyone's lined up, and all the other things that we are responsible for as it relates to doing our job. So, what does the ready mean? Means that I'm ready. My partner, if it's a 2-man crew, is ready at the 7. If it's a 3-man crew, I have my downfield. He's ready to go. If it's a 4-man crew and I'm behind the QB, I've got myself, line of scrimmage, 7-yard, deep. I'm pointing to all 4 or all 3 and say, "You guys ready? All right, we're going. Ready for
Mhm.
play." So that's what people don't understand, and what we tell them is like, "Hey, you guys got to let us get set first."
Yeah, so
Mhm.
and something that I've learned from you, Lance, just I guess recently, and I think you always do it, but I've tried to get in the habit of it. Is even just throughout an entire game, I
Mm-hmm.
notice that you will hack in every single play, even though that's not something that normally you see in flag. I've gotten into the habit of it because then that kind of gets the players into that habit of knowing, okay, I'm waiting for his whistle no matter what.
So
Mhm.
so it's a little bit so it's actually contradictory versus like high school tackle because they're actually told we're not supposed to chop it in if it's just a normal play. What I've learned is I will chirp it in ready for play. That way, players know play clock's rolling now. But if I chirp
Mhm.
it in, they have no reason to say, "Oh, I didn't know it was running. I didn't know the play clock was running." I'm like, I just chirped it in. We're ready for play. So to that end, my goal is to make sure like, hey, you have no excuse to say I didn't know because I blew the whistle in. I'm ready to go, and we're waiting on you to get your play off. And when we start getting their play clock down to like 10, and they're just kind of walking to the line of scrimmage, we're like, did you not know it's at 6? It's at 5 because I chirped it in. So I do get into the habit. The other habit that I've been taught, especially by like Dez and Ramal when we're doing IFAF, is that we need to make sure our counterparts that are on our field are ready. Like again, if we're ready for play, it means we are ready for play. So like when if we get to a spot, we set the line, and I'm waiting for um, the rush line to get set. I'm not blowing that in until that person is set.
Mhm.
Because if they want to go fast and he's not set, everyone's going to complain. Oh, where's my rush line? Blah blah blah. Right. So
Yep.
I'm saying, is he ready? Great. Chirp it in, and we're good.
Yeah, it gives the opportunity to have a clean game. I think
Mhm.
just taking that extra time, and just like you said, the clock's not running in the change of possession. So why do we need to be rushing down the field? It really just comes down to the offense just wanting to catch the defense off guard, which
Exactly.
Mhm.
we're not going to let happen. So Zane, as far as just kind of following through some of the rules, I know you're gearing up for Camel City this weekend, which is fives
Yep.
contact, or as I love to call it, Mamba City. I just can you talk to me about the differences between fives contact and fives non-contact as it relates to like under 2 minutes and the penalties and things like that?
So the thing about the difference between contact and non-contact is there is no 2-minute warning in contact, such as non-contact. Because I know in non-contact, once you get under 2 minutes, it is delay of game, false start, encroachment, and
Offsides.
uh, offsides. Yes, offsides. Those go to a loss of down instead of a regular delay of game. In contact, there is no 2 minute warning and nothing changes. It is always a replay down or automatic first for encroachment. And then y'all in non-contact, you give a 1 minute warning and a 2 minute warning. In contact, you only give that 1 minute warning, and you try and get it as close to 1 minute without interrupting live ball play.
For sure. So, Zane, for you personally, do you like to have, like, if you're the referee behind the quarterback, let's say best case scenario, it's a four-man crew. Do you like to have control of all of the clocks, or how do you divvy that up?
So if I am referee and I'm behind the quarterback, I 1000% am going to take game clock. Now, depending on who my line judge may be, I may give them the I may give them um the the play clock. I'm sorry, brain fart. Um, I
Yeah.
I may give them the play clock, but I, as a referee, I will always blow it in. And as soon as my line judge hears me chirp it in, that's whenever he can start his play clock. Because, like Lance said, I will always check my other partners on the field and make sure they are set. In the rules, it does say that the play clock starts at the end of a play, but I always do it whenever I and my counterparts are set.
For sure, yeah, and I know Lance. I think intentionally does this because he just wants to mess with me. When I'm on the line and he's behind the quarterback, he always gives me the quarterback clock. Which, like, what's the reasoning behind that, Lance?
So actually, there's actually a specific reason. So I'll answer kind of the same question that you asked, Zane. So for me, I like doing play clock and game clock because I'm actually at the quarterback. So he has
Mhm.
no excuse to be if he's a delay a game. Right? If I have play clock, he's got no excuse. The reason why I ask for QB clock from the sideline versus behind the QB, I have from a depth perception, I don't know when the rusher crosses the line. So
Okay.
right, so if I'm just guessing, that's not the right thing to do. I can being behind the QB gives me, especially in non-contact, gives me full view on impede, right, or any illegal contact in the middle of the field. So
Hmm.
that's great. But at the same time, I can't tell where the line of scrimmage is. It's actually really hard because your depth perception is a little bit off. So if you're
Yeah.
because if you're on the line and you're looking straight down the line, just why would I have myself question it and just say, hey, you're on the line, you call the QB clock. That
Hmm.
way there's no questions about it. And that way I can focus in on making sure there's no impede, there's no illegal contact, especially in the middle of the field. And if there's a throwback, I can make sure the pass backs were legit, and then if there's a release from the main QB, there's no hooks or anything like that. So that's kind of why I have the line of scrimmage person take the QB clock.
Hmm.
So you're trying to tell me that every field in flag football is not lined out with every single yard, and there's not perfect lines and everything like that? I don't understand. Is that is that
I
like?
never said there's not. I never talked about it. It's called depth perception.
I got you. Yeah, but if we were on, like, if you're on a tackle, football field, it's a little easier to see the line
Oh,
of scrimmage
absolutely.
with,
Yes,
you
Hmm.
because
know.
you would have hash marks in the middle of the field, which I could live off. Yes.
Yeah, 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 for sure. So, Zane, what other things stick out to you about clock mechanics? What's something that always comes up, or is a frustration of yours with clock mechanics?
Maybe not so much a frustration, but a lot of times you do see teams not utilizing clock mechanics and timeouts as they should be. Just like QB Ant, the one who DM'd us the other day about how if a timeout's called on a PAT in the first half, when does the clock start? A lot of times, if a team scores a touchdown and the opposing team is down by 7, or I'm sorry, down by 6 on the PAT, If I know I'm gonna get ball at during the second half, I'm gonna call that timeout and try and get down the field as fast as I possibly can to even the score, knowing
Yep.
that I'm gonna have ball after halftime.
Yep.
But
Well, here's the thing, Zane. I brought this up on Wednesday. Let's just be real clear about this. Women know how to manage the clock, and men don't. That's it.
Mhm.
That's all it comes down to. I like. I'm sorry, but men have proven to me time and time again that the easiest thing that they want to do is they want to look at an inexperienced referee and they want to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, ball game." And if they can trick that referee into calling the ball game, then they've worked their way out of having to manage the clock.
I
Where
would
women
definitely.
look at it,
I'm
they
sorry.
approach it completely different.
I I would 1000% be lying if in my first couple months of refereeing, if I did not get tricked into calling ball game, and I'm like, and then the other team of course is gonna blow up and be like, no, we still have two timeouts, and then I have to call Jordan or Jacob and be like, is this right? And they're like, yes, and I'm like, well, shit, and then we have to keep
Oops.
going.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Lance? I mean, you see a lot. How do you see games all the time blown because of terrible clock management?
Yeah. So I'll give you a great. Yeah, it was. There's one tournament in Vegas. It was a team from Hawaii versus it was like 5-man comp non-contact. It's a team from Hawaii and a team from I want to say Arizona. Arizona was up. So Arizona goes in and scores. It was under a minute. I'm sorry. Hawaii scores, so Arizona gets the ball, but they're up. And all they needed to do was run the ball, kill the clock, right? What do they do? Bomb, incomplete, stops clock. Bomb, incomplete, stops clock. Sack, change of possession, stops clock. Guess what? And by the way, this is championship. And we told them, this is me and Bika, Brandon Covington. This is on our field. I asked the QB, so what do you want to do? You want you're gonna sit on it? You're going to no, we want to score. I'm like, I look, all right, this is gonna backfire. What happens? 3 and out. I want to say it's like under 30 seconds. So what happens? Hawaii goes down, scores, ball game. They win the championship. And I was all like, wow. And Hawaii never had to use a timeout because they had incomplete passes.
Yeah, I hadn't. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, so the thing with clock management is there are certain folks that actually understand the concept of, hey, team scores, call timeout right after they score. Clock doesn't start until they get the ball coming out, right? So they actually save clock, and kind of to your point, Zane, like what I call 2-for-1. They get to run 2 offensive series literally at one time, right?
Yeah.
To get potentially get 2 scores. So those are the teams that actually understand and know the concept versus guys are just like, I think it was a Wednesday night. Someone scored with like 45 seconds, and I'm yelling. I'm like, 45 seconds, clock's rolling. Silence from the team, right? So offense time, like, all right, they get and then so the offense gets the ball, they score their PAT, and I call halftime, and they're like, defense is all like, what happened? I'm like, because clock's rolling. Oh, we forgot. Got it to your point. And yes, Ant, they were men's. Say it.
Hey, well, and I will give credit where credit's due. There was a situation in Phoenix, and it was a co-ed game, and it was the Curry Bombshells against the Freaks. Now,
Yeah.
he did an amazing thing. So there was a flag guard. The Freaks had the ball. There was a flag guard, and then the male receiver on the Freaks. After the flag guard, he scored. Law accepted the penalty so that they'd have to take the male touchdown, and he trusted his offense enough because then at that point they were only down by 7. He trusted his offense enough to march down the field and score a female touchdown and win the game. It was amazing. Everybody was surprised, did not understand why he was accepting the penalty. And I mean, just straight out, right off his head, he was like, "Yep, I'm accepting the penalty. Touchdown. Let's keep it moving." Now, on the flip side of that, I saw in the IFAF Continentals, it was Brazil and Argentina for like the fifth, sixth place game. And the game was back and forth the entire time. So Argentina has the ball. There's a defensive penalty. And so if they decline the penalty, they would have still had 2 more downs to get mid, and then they would have had the downs to score. Now they were up, so essentially they would have had 6 plays to just run out the clock. Now what they did is they accepted the penalty, which then put them first and goal, and they threw 3 incomplete passes. And so then they were scrambling. They ended up turning over the ball, and the other team comes down, marches down the field, and scores and wins the game. So, those kind of situations, it's really important to know how to manage that clock. So, speaking of international play and everything like that, Lance, so we want to, kind of jump into the next topic. I know you had an exciting rainy weekend. Me and Zane, we were on opposite coasts, but we were in muddy conditions. You, Lance, but you were inside. You were running the 40. You were bench pressing 225. I want to hear all about your week at the national trials this past weekend.
So first of all, we were not indoors. That was just they were just doing combine work, and we were not there for that. So basically, this first weekend for the adult trials was essentially for the 2024 group. So they brought in, so they did all their invites earlier this year for both men's and women's, and they all came out to Charlotte where they did combine work, 20s, standing jump. They did some shuttle work just to check on speed and agility. And that was basically everyone got rated on that. Then we went out on the field. Friday was a mess, kind of like you guys. It was raining and cold. You could tell it was affecting people's ability to catch the ball, throw the ball, pull flags. But luckily, we came out Saturday and Sunday, at least Saturday the entire day, Sunday morning. It was actually a really good piece of work by all the players. So essentially what they did was both men's and women's had 6 teams each, and they essentially ran a tournament for in the morning and in the afternoon. In the morning, they had one set of teams. In the afternoon, they had a different set of teams. And then on Sunday morning, they had another set of teams. So it gave players, QBs, coaches the opportunity to see how players interacted with other players, interacted with other defenders, other QBs, which is the right approach, because they got to see how folks interacted with other players. It's great to see familiar faces like Hoosh and Pablo. It was actually really good to see some new faces like JJ and Jordan from the West Coast, and a lot of the 17U girls came up, like Ava and that group, to compete against the adults. So it's really fun. Lots of good football. It was really fun to watch. A lot of the new players who have not been part of the international world, they got a good learning, right? First of all, you can't jump. There's no laterals. And we were very tight on the contact, where if there's any kind of contact, we were throwing a flag. And people were like, well, I can do that on my Saturday league, or I can do that at Worlds. I'm like, yes, you can do that at Worlds, but you cannot do that international. So it was a great learning experience for a lot of the net new players who are just coming into this. For us that were there, like Des, Ramal, myself, Dre and the crew that we had. It was just good for us to kind of um, get back to working the international rule set, albeit a little bit different. But it was fun, and it was just a good time to have.
So you and B Cove just weren't sitting on the sideline in some lawn chairs, just relaxing, watching the good football.
Well, B Cup wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
He was actually, he's there's a scheduling conflict, but no, we were not there. We were working 2-man crews for international ball, which was not fun.
Yeah.
2-man crew international ball it's actually really hard because international ball, like tackle, we had to set the ball as referees. So we were literally running back and forth between the middle of the field. So that's the one thing that we have to watch for. We also are really cognizant, again, on contact, both offense, defense, in terms of like playing the ball. So we had a couple players who are like, well, yeah, I hit him, but I made a play on the ball. I'm like, yeah, but you just literally said you hit him or you made contact with the offensive player while making a play on the ball. So a couple of guys had to learn that, and they're just learning as they go. So, but it was a good time. Looking forward to the next series of trials that are coming up. I know the under 17 is next weekend, and then the next set I believe is in May, but I'm not 100% sure.
Gotcha. So you mentioned being in 2-man crews. How did you overcome that? I mean, that sounds pretty challenging for sure.
It was very challenging. Like just because, I mean, there are certain challenges which is generically with a 2-man crew where we have gaps, right? There's going to be some blind spots. The one thing that's very hard in a 2-man crew is that because we're on the sidelines in international ball, if a rusher declares with their hand up at the snap, doesn't matter where they lined up, doesn't matter if they're in bunch, doesn't matter what it is in terms of an offensive set. They have free lane. Doesn't matter, right? So it's very hard for us to see, like in a bunch formation, if you're looking down the line versus behind the QB, because you have a different perspective. We tried to make the best of it. I would like sneak a peek if I could, move my feet a little bit just to get a better view. But that's the one big gaping blind spot, I guess is the best way to call it, that we were seeing. Is like, in a bunch formation, rusher declaration, everyone's doing everything right, and I hope I see it, unfortunately. But in terms of international ball, they will have four refs. There's just in this trials, we only had a limited number of refs, so we tried to do what we could, but at the same time, it was a little bit of a challenge. But when we get to cut down, and as well as we get to more international ball, we hopefully will have 4-man crews.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about in normal fives, having a bunch formation in the no run zone, and even with a 4-man crew. I mean, there's just so much going on, and it's so hard to be able to see where the contact's happening, who's initiating it, who has the right of way, where did the rusher come from. I mean, there's just so much going on. So, kudos to you guys for working 2-man crews and not the greatest weather and everything like that.
Kudos. First of all, I grew up on 2-man crews in contact. If you want to do something hard, do 2-man crews in a contact game, bro. Oh.
Hey, well, I grew up doing 2-man crews and 8-man contact, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Never mind. Yes, sir.
So.
Yeah, but that was back in the 70s when Wilt Chamberlain was
still. You're not that far behind, Ant. Be careful.
No, I shaved off my gray hair. Don't worry, I'm good. So Lance, just on a personal level, as far as trials go, was there any? I know you mentioned some names, but I mean, like, who really stuck out to you as like, whoa, they balled out this past weekend?
There were some. I mean, I think you had the usual suspects that were there from last year, right? You had Hoosh, Pablo, Felt, Flash. They were doing their thing, right? Jordan Harrison from Arizona, he made a couple of spectacular plays. JJ was. I thought JJ did really well on Saturday, just from my perspective, right? I'm not a coach, so I'm not looking for the particulars, but just from my reffing perspective, it was nice to see him out and about. On the women's side, again, you had your usual suspects. You had Neek, you had Ashley Clam, that were just all over the place. There was the one I will say is Lacey from Colorado. She balled out. She did really well, at least from my perspective. Um, and it was nice to see her compete against some of the other talent that was out there. So, you know, I'm not an evaluator. I just like good football, like you guys. And when I see it, you're like, all right, I'm just here to mark the ball. That's it. Everyone else they're doing their job. I'm just here to mark the ball. That's it. That's what makes the job easier. And you guys know, right? When we have to throw flags and we have to explain stuff, that's when it gets to be like, okay, is this game over yet? Please, is this game over yet? When it's just good football and flags are being pulled and routes are being like extraordinary route running, and you're like, oh, that was a really good play. Let's go mark the ball.
Yeah.
Let's go. Those are the fun games, and those are the games that actually you want to keep going because you want to see them keep playing, right? You actually are kind of sad the game's over. Sorry, but that was actually a really good game. Those are the games you want to continue to have on your field.
For sure. Yeah, I had a co-ed game this past weekend that it was just a good, clean game across the board, back and forth, and came down to it. And the team that marched down the field with, I think they had 4 seconds left, and they were on like maybe the 10 or 12 yard line, and the quarterback just made an amazing pass to the back of the end zone to a female. 9 points, won the game. They moved on to the semis. So it was exciting to watch, and I was glad that there was nothing that made me throw a flag in that last play. So, I don't want to break any hearts on the last play of a winning drive. That's for sure. So,
absolutely.
So Zane, you were in the same state as Lance. I don't know why you guys didn't hang out, but what did you do? What did you do this past weekend?
So I was with Pat and Jordan at the Ballhurst Choice this past weekend,
Nice.
aka the Mud Bowl of 2024. Because goodness gracious, so I had the luxury of picking up the field after everything finished on Saturday. My ref hoodie, I had to wash it 3 times because when I was picking up the rope, my entire side was covered in mud. I washed it twice. It still had a stain. Washed it again. Still had a stain. And then even now, it's still a little bit darker than the rest. But goodness gracious. But yeah,
Is that it? Is that the first? No, go ahead.
So I'm about to say it was honestly just like Jacob was saying, it was bringing the 8 women's of the Raleigh Durham area into fives, and honestly, I mean they did very well. I was very surprised. I will say there was one team in particular in the 5 women's non-contact who were just blowing teams out the water. And the last touchdown they had, I remember it was a controversial call on my part. But it's always controversial on our parts, where she had run an a post route, and the quarterback dumped it. The ball hit her hands, bounced off her chest, and then she gained possession, like y'all were talking about in the other day. She gained possession, but as soon as she gained possession, she was already 1 step out of bounds. And then after the game, the coach tried to come up to me and show me a video about how I missed it, but lo and behold, you could not see because the sideline was full, and I was
For
like,
sure.
"You can't see it, out the way."
That was a flag catch.
It was a flag catch, correct?
I, Lance, I feel like we did a really good job of proving that really the only term that should be used from this point on is flag catch. Like that's it. That's all.
That's it.
That's all we need to use. I mean, like Lance, you need to realize you only have your friends to blame for like.
I'm not. I 1,000% agree. It came from up here in Northern California. That term, at least that's the first time I've ever heard it, and I literally turned and the first time I heard it was, I think it was after Santa Clarita or Arizona. I don't remember. I just turned and looked at the player. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. What does that
I
define that for me?
I was also confused listening to that. I was like, what is a flag catch? Because that's something that I had never heard before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's essentially if the ball touches their hands at all, it's a catch. That's
Hmm.
what they're saying is considered a flag catch. But I do think that Abdullah and La do a good job of posting some videos where it is slowed down and you can actually see the player catch it, get possession, and get 1 foot in bounds. That's a catch. It's not a flag catch. That is a catch. So, like, we don't need that extra term. We already have enough issues with players that say, well, the NFL does this and the NFL does that. And guys, I want you to use this response anytime you hear that. Nobody's got a helmet on. Nobody has pads on. Like, let's move on. So yeah, I think we might be able to talk about a flag catch and a catch every single episode and we would still have things to talk about. So
Yep.
uh, but all right, so just moving on, we're not going to get into huge detail about this next topic, but Zane, I did want to take a moment, just as Lance was saying, gearing up for trials and everything like that. I just wanted you to kind of share your experiences with IFAF and Olympic, international rules and things like that, and what you
Hmm.
like and don't like about it.
Um, so granted, it has been a year since I have done international, so I have not really retouched up on the rule set. But like Lance was saying, one of the predominant things was the rusher having the hand up and being able to go through a bunch at any point. Um, and again, to touch up on what Lance was saying about how a lot of players who are used to like USA flag and league plays where you are allowed to jump, it does kind of catch them off guard if they're not used to it because it does just be kind of come muscle memory at some points for players. Um, oh, there's there's one more there's one more difference about it. But the international trials to me were honestly amazing because I remember in the first days it was two-man crews and you were going over all the teams. Now I will say that I did love watching all the athleticism coming from all over the world. Big shout out to Team Japan, the boys 17 and 15U. I mean, they absolutely dominated. I did have the luxury of refing the gold medal match between USA and Japan, the 17U boys. Um, I mean, so and we always talk about how female teams are always smarter and know how to use stuff. But I mean, Japan really were smart about their plays, and kudos to them. Which I still have. It's very worn out, but I still have my Japan bracelet. Yep, that we have. Um, and then I remember in the gold medal match. at halftime, Brandon coming, Biko came up to me and was like, because I have a bad habit when I ref that if it's a sideline play, I have a bad habit of like pointing at the ground and like running up like this. He literally said, "Stop pointing." I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yep, okay." So I had to kind of like wipe pointing from my muscle memory. Um,
Uh,
but always it will always forever be Viva Mexico. I absolutely loved watching Team Mexico play. I actually got a an old ref shirt signed by every single player on every single team um, at the event, and that was honestly the highlight of it all.
that's awesome.
Cool.
I definitely, for me personally, I don't come from officiating tackle, and so there's a lot of mechanics that I was learning on the fly. I was very thankful to be, be working on Hollywood's crew for the days kind of leading up to and training and everything like that. It was, I will say this, mentally, it was more draining than any other tournament that I've been involved in because there's cameras that are recording
Mhm.
everything. There's people that are basically doing analytics of the penalties that we're throwing. There's at halftime we're kind of getting like, okay, what was this call? What was that? There was so much
Mhm.
going into it, and I just remember feeling like getting done for the day, and we only did we didn't do that many games, but I felt like I was just mentally like I just had to completely shut down. So I learned a lot, but it was also very just mentally draining.
Mhm.
Lance, how do you feel like your experiences and your growth in international and tackle what has kind of shifted your roles?
So this past year, this coming year, this will be the third year that I've been, actually the fourth year, because I did Michigan, Chula Vista last year, and then this year. Um, so every year is a learning experience, just because of the nuances. From kind of to your point, um, there are specific nuances that the international federation wants us as refs to be very cognizant about, in terms of like where we're standing, our positioning, what are keys to look for in terms of plays on the field. So kind of echoing your point, and it can be somewhat mentally draining, especially because in some capacities you kind of have to retrain your brain to not go where you normally would go in if we were just doing league play or USA flag play, right? We have to actually go like, hey, I'm only focusing on this. I can't help in this one spot. So that's the other piece. um, for me, the one thing that I've learned and I've brought it to tackle is, again, you brought it up, like there's cameras everywhere. So one of the things that they want us to do, especially when we were doing the Continental Cup, was, assume that there's a press box, assume you have audience, and you gotta be able to, as especially if you're a white hat, um, make your calls in terms of the penalties, announcing, making sure you're telling a story with no audio. That's one thing that Ramal stipulates, and he said that this past week. I'm like, hey, be when you're making your calls as the referee, you need to be able to tell the story with no audio. Like, be very cognizant, um, and be able to tell that story. So that's the one thing that I learned and I took to heart. And like for me, this past year with tackle, I became more and more involved as a white hat. So I'm like, all right, so now I have no choice. So now that I have that, plus last year's international, kind of more comfortable in doing it, kind of more comfortable in doing the announcements, hand signals, and so on and so forth. So now I think I'm better prepared than I was last year, but there's always certain little nuances that I can be better at, and it's just part of, you just need to get those reps in to see where those gaps are.
Oh, for sure. And I know Jacob wanted to mention this on Wednesday, and I just want to mention that we did have the opportunity this past weekend in LA to have uh, 8 international refs from Mexico and from Southern
Hmm.
California come and be a part of the officiating crew in LA. Even there was one Miguel, and he was at the World Games, and
Hmm.
and he was also at Tampa, and so. It was amazing. They did an amazing job. I know that there's a bit of a language barrier there, and that that can be challenging. But I will tell you one thing about these guys: they do care about the game.
Right.
They have a saying, and I'm sorry, but the English language takes away the romanticism of the Spanish language, the Spanish
Correct.
language, And so when they say it, it sounds very good. But in English, basically, it's saying that as officials, we're here to serve the players. We're here to provide the best and the most fair game possible. And so for them, they take pride in that. It's
Good.
very important to them. They come in full uniform. They study the rule books. They study the mechanics. The 2 hour drive back I had with a couple of them, they were even asking me like, "What do you say in this situation?" Because we hear different refs saying it. Well, why do you say it that way? What is the best way to say it? They're excited about continuing to be able to have opportunities in America, and I think it's amazing. The more we can interact with the international community, it's an amazing experience. And so, I was so thankful to be able to go to Charlotte. I'm hoping just by location alone, I can be invited to the Junior International Cup because it's in LA. So but we'll see. That's me hinting at Ramal to let me in. But so just saying. But
I might
but
have a
anyway,
little bit of pull, just a little, some pull. I mean, remember, I
all
got
right.
you into San Diego too. Remember?
Yeah, yeah,
So
I know,
yeah, I
I
got
know.
invite.
So no, but that stuff is exciting and it's exciting to be a part of. And honestly, for me, and I don't want to get too deep into it. But my children are Hispanic. I have 2 daughters. One that is a two sport athlete. She plays flag football. She plays soccer. I want my daughters to be inspired by Hispanic athletes, and I want them to see
Hmm.
that they can reach any goals and dreams that they have. And I just this is my shout out to the women, the international women in the Hispanic community that are just continuing to strive and push forward. They're everywhere and they're amazing athletes, and they take pride in what they do, and they love playing flag football. It's a huge opportunity for them. So I'm thankful that I can point my daughters in that direction and say, look, there are Hispanic women that have paved the road ahead for you. So just to kind of wrap up, what are we doing this weekend, Zane? What do you got going on?
I will say I will be at Camel City for week 3. Super excited. Jacob still has not sent me what games I'm refing, so I'll find out in the morning. But
Nice.
yeah, I'll say I Camel City this
Sounds
weekend.
familiar.
Lance, where you at this weekend?
I am actually taking a nice weekend off, just relax, um, and then worry about Miami next week.
There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah, and I unfortunately had to scramble to kind of get a little work this weekend. I will be at a passing league tomorrow. Just doing that. And probably on Sunday as well. So hopefully this time around it's not raining or muddy, and we're back to sunny California. But yeah, we're gonna be in Miami next week. I know we're gonna be live in Miami.
Yep.
We'll have a show before then, so we definitely will preview Miami coming up and everything like that. So,
Oh yeah.
uh, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor once again, TZ Customs. I know Lance has about 35 custom shoes from from TZ. He's got Air Forces in every color. He's got purple. He's got, he's got but if you want to be like Lance and have that much shoe game, you gotta hit up TZ Customs. At TZ Customs is his handle. Zane, where are we at? Where are all the socials we're at?
Hey, yes, sir. We are on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. I will say we're on Spotify. It is all Clocks Running. I will say like, follow, subscribe, share, all the good stuff.
Here we go. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Zane. I'm so glad to have you back. It was lonely and scary being being stuck with Jacob and Jordan this past week. So I appreciate you. And Lance, thank you so much for joining us live again.
Yep.
You guys have a good night.
All right.
Yes,
See you
sir.
guys later.
Yes, sir.